Okay, so humans have been around for about 300,000 years, but until about 12,000 years ago, our ancestors were nomadic hunter-gatherers with no permanent homes or cities. So we don't have much in the way of history to learn about the vast majority of human existence. But starting around 12,000 years ago, things start to pick up. And one of the first major events that we associate with humans happened 40,000 years ago, when Homo sapiens began painting pictures on cave walls. Painting is associated with pretty much every culture on Earth today, so it's hard to overstate just how important this was. Today, we're going to learn why people started painting 40,000 years ago, who they were painting, what they were painting, and finally, where they were painting. Now, before we jump into the episode, I want to point out that this is a super timely topic, because right now, at the British Museum in London, there is an exhibition called Life in Prehistoric Britain, which explores Britain's prehistoric past from about 1 million years ago to the middle of the Roman Empire. I worked with the museum to do some consulting for the show, and I even recorded a podcast there. The show is filled with artifacts from daily life like tools, jewelry, and weapons, alongside incredible sculptures and paintings. There's even a recreation of a Stone Age roundhouse. As you can see, there's so much to discover about Britain's prehistory, much of which I cover on this channel. So make sure you check out the show if you're near London. And of course, without further ado, let's get back to the episode. So 40,000 years ago, humans had not yet settled down into cities. Instead, we lived in small groups, spread out all across Europe, Africa, and Asia. This means that there are many different groups of humans whose art we could consider here. But today we're going to focus on two sites in particular, the caves of Chauvet and Cosca in southern France. These caves are remarkable because they contain some of the oldest surviving figurative cave art on Earth. By figurative art, I mean any artwork that depicts actual things, as opposed to purely abstract art. Both of these caves contain tens of thousands of pieces of art, but really only a tiny portion of those are human figures. The first piece of art you see here comes from Chauvet, and it dates to roughly 36,000 years ago. It's a simple drawing of a horse done by dragging a blunt object like a bone across the cave floor. You might think that this is pretty primitive and simple, but remember that this is 36,000 years old. Picasso took up painting at age 15, so this person's artistic career probably started before the wheel was invented. That's pretty impressive. Of course, it's also possible that they didn't intend it to be a work of art at all. In fact, we don't know that these drawings were created intentionally as art. Some researchers argue that these lines may have been made during rituals instead. In fact, that may have been the purpose of the caves themselves. Researchers suggest that these caves may have been used as ceremonial spaces and that the paintings may have been part of religious rituals. This theory is supported by the fact that both of these caves contained hearths or fireplaces. The Chauvet cave even has a central area filled with burnt animal bones. All of this suggests that our ancestors may have been trying to create a magical or spiritual atmosphere within the caves. It's also interesting to note that both of these caves were discovered relatively recently. Chauvet was only discovered in 1994, while Cosca was discovered by a group of cavers in 1985. These caves remained hidden beneath the ground for tens of thousands of years, suggesting that they were deliberately concealed. These two caves are very close to each other and were likely used by the same group of humans. They lived in the region that's now southern France, which was covered in large forests at the time. This forest is now long gone, so we don't know exactly what plants and animals lived there, but we do have some clues. Both of these caves contain depictions of various extinct species, including woolly mammoths and woolly rhinoceroses. These animals lived during the last ice age, which makes it pretty strange that they would have been depicted 10,000 years before they went extinct. This may suggest that our ancestors knew more about their environment than we previously thought. Perhaps they had local knowledge that the Ice Age megafauna would soon disappear. Alternatively, these creatures may have simply appeared in their dreams. Remember, we don't know that these paintings were intended to be works of art. It's possible that they were intended to capture memories of dreams instead. Interestingly, the Chauvet cave contains the oldest known depiction of a human. This carving is roughly 37,000 years old and was made by pressing a hand into wet clay. We don't know who this person was or why they were drawn, but given the lack of other human figures, it's possible that they were part of a larger story or scene that has since been lost. Over the next few thousand years, more humans would be carved and painted throughout Europe. But still, humans are quite rare in prehistoric art. In fact, out of the tens of thousands of pieces of art in Chauvet and Cosbit, only about 10% are human figures. That makes sense. When you think about it, most prehistoric humans probably looked pretty similar, so there wasn't much need to depict them. What was special about these humans? Were they important shamans or chiefs? Or were they regular people who had accomplished something extraordinary, like hunting a mammoth? Unfortunately, we simply don't know. Sometime after 40,000 years ago, humans would begin to hunt large numbers of reindeer. This was likely a response to the changing climate, which became colder and drier around 30,000 years ago. Reindeer are well adapted to cold climates, so they would have been a good source of food and clothing. And sure enough, reindeer appear all over prehistoric art. The Chauvet and Koskar caves both have dozens of reindeer carvings, as do many other sites across Europe. But they weren't the only animals hunted by prehistoric humans. Horses, bison, and wild cattle were also common subjects in prehistoric art. We can tell that these animals were hunted based on the location of the carvings. Many of them are found near entrances to the cave, which suggests that they were carved before being hunted. Basically, the act of carving or painting an animal secured their essence, making it easier to hunt them. This practice is called sympathetic magic. It's the idea that you can influence the world by manipulating objects. Sympathetic magic is found all over the world and throughout history, but it's especially prominent in prehistoric art. Another example of this can be found at the Blombos Cave in South Africa. Here, humans carved various shapes into ochre stones. Each stone monolith represents an animal or plant, which suggests that these items were used to hunt or gather specific foods. Humans didn't just hunt animals, though. They also painted plants. The Blombos Cave contains etchings of various plants, as do several other sites across Africa and Europe. This suggests that humans selectively foraged for specific plants. One of the most fascinating examples of prehistoric plant collecting can be found in Spain at the Castillo Cave. Here, there are paintings of more than 50 different types of plants. These include edible plants like mushrooms, berries, and grains, as well as medicinal plants and poisonous plants. This suggests that prehistoric humans had a deep understanding of the plants around them. They didn't just eat whatever plants they found. Instead, they specifically sought out certain kinds of plants for specific uses. I should also mention that there are some attempts to link specific rock art sites to nearby water sources, which suggests that these sites may have been used to ensure successful fishing trips. So there you have it. 40,000 years ago, humans began painting pictures on cave walls. We don't know exactly why they did this, but it may have been part of religious rituals or to record their dreams. They painted animals that they wanted to hunt and plants that they wanted to eat. They also painted human figures, although we don't know who these humans were or why they were painted. One thing's for sure, though this was a huge step in human history. Painting is associated with pretty much every culture on Earth today, so it's hard to overstate just how important this was. Thanks for watching.